So yesterday we discussed about various aspects of ecosystem and energy flow. So we'll continue in that, and then we'll cover biogeochemical cycling of nutrients.
Course, and as you are aware, we are expecting offline information system. Let us claim that things becomes okay now. It's pandemic and will endemic and will become immune to this disease, so that we can come back to our normal track and most of
I'm sharing the PPT. Let me know once you're able to see it.
the duration of quality education. Registration track first. बाकी चीजें बाद आई, once we lost it, education नहीं आ पाएगा. We are hoping we will have these offline semester exams, and the system will be same for now. That is after each module we will have.
Are you able to see the screen?
Unless
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we'll continue in that energy flow part.
Sir, yesterday you didn't upload the PPT of last lecture.
Acha, till I think lecture 3 I have uploaded, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Actually, and some
Okay, I'll upload the rest of the module, whatever we have covered so far today. There are still students coming. Why they are late?
The math class got extended, sir.
अच्छा ओके मैथ्स का था इससे पहले आप लोगों का वो भी कॉमन है मतलब
Yes, sir.
IT and Triple E both these classes attend that one also together.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
अच्छा
Also common.
okay. अच्छा अगर बात बीच में अगर आप लोग नहीं बोल रहे तो प्लीज म्यूट रहोगे तो ठीक रहता है otherwise there is a lot of background noise that comes.
Anshuraj. Kashish. Ashish Yani. Third as well.
So if we look at the energy flow diagram in a lake and then we look how we can combine the biophagic and saprophagic pathways of energy flow. So basically what we are looking at is how there is this interaction of different organisms and yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This screen is not.
Just screen is there is some issue with it. We had a severe storm yesterday. I think.
So please check it.
I think those who are from Ranchi, they would have
Registration started.
Yes, sir.
also felt it. Campus was severely affected. Many trees fell, and also electric poles.
Yudesh.
I'm resharing it. अभी दिख रहा है?
Saurabh.
हाँ sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay. So, if we look at this interaction of organisms, where we are combining biophagic. Biophagic means those organisms which are consuming bio. Okay. For example, if you look at this, those which consume autotrophs, and then we have the saprophagic pathways of energy flow. Okay. Now, if you look at this, first order biophages utilize autotroph. है ना ये जो देख रहे हो यहाँ पे first order biophage they utilize autotrophs and then first order saprophages utilize non-living matter. If you look at this, first order saprophages, they are utilizing non-living organic matter from autotroph as well as organic material that is produced by the first order biophages. And then first order biophages, they are utilized by second order biophages. They can be utilized by predators and parasites. Or when they complete their life cycle, where nutrient release is also used by them. Okay. Biophages and saprophages of same order constitute one trophic level. For example, this one, if you see this first order saprophages and first order biophages, they form one trophic level. And the second order saprophages and second order biophages, they form another trophic level. So if you see that there is an input of energy, and then there is output. Output is related to heat release. For example, if you compare the solar radiation from our earlier discussion, that kickstarts the ecosystem processes, and then output is release of heat. And this system boundary that we are seeing, it is basically allowing us to see where the ecosystem has its boundaries. It is sort of an imaginary boundary which we can have to account for heat in and heat loss. Then we have this Y-shaped energy flow diagram showing this linkages between grazing and detritus food chain. We have seen that there are three types of food chain. Okay. Now, what happens? We have the sunlight and it allows these plants to grow, and then these plants will be taken by herbivorous, and then herbivorous plants are consumed by predators. This R stands for respiration, and then this is the biophasic food chain. If you just look at this one way, okay, plants going to herbivorous, from herbivorous the energy is getting transferred to predators, and from there it is going to biophages. Now, these plants, once they complete their life cycle, there are also the saprophagic consumers. Okay, these saprophagic consumers, they make this saprophagic food chain. And then there are also these herbivores which are used by the saprophagic consumers, and then saprophagic consumers in turn can also serve as source of nutrients to predators. So basically this shows the basic stratified structure of ecosystem. Direct consumption of living plants and dead organic matter. They are usually separated both in time and space. And then we have this macro and micro consumer which differ greatly in metabolism relations. So if you see that the whole diagram is taking the shape of Y. So it is starting off with sunlight, and then it is getting in two branches, biophasic and saprophagic food chain. So this is what is referred as the Y-shaped energy flow diagram. So this conforms to the stratified structure, as I told you, of ecosystem, and shows the feeding patterns of living plants and utilization of dead organic matter. When I'm saying time, for example, if you just say a forest ecosystem, and if you're tracking the movement of energy, then it can be either based on time. That means you go and record the energy flow on every day for say a month, then we are getting time series data. Now suppose you are looking at an ecosystem which has an area of 1 acre, and then you are trying to record the energy flow throughout that 1 acre area. That will be considered as spatial data. So if you look at this lake as an example, we have the green belt. Green belt means it is an indication of chlorophyll. Green is due to chlorophyll in plants. Okay. Now green belt means there is photosynthesis that is existing at top of the water. Brown belt means the production that is happening at the base of the water, that is sediment. So we have this green belt and brown belt. Within forest and marshes, we have detritus food chain, which is dominating there. So this is basically to help you understand the different energy flow models.
We have talked about all
So if you look at this Y-shaped energy flow model, grazing and detritus food chains, they are interconnected. You saw that. Energy from biophasic food chain is also going to saprophagic food chain. And not all the food that is consumed by grazers is actually assimilated. Assimilation means whenever we are taking in some nutrients, which becomes part of the biomass of organism is referred as assimilation. Okay, so all the food that is taken by grazer is actually not assimilated because some of it is excreted as waste and is diverted to the detritus pathway. That means feces of organisms or animals or any waste that is excreted from the body of organisms, okay, that would be taken by the detritus pathway. So the amount of net production energy that flows down two pathways varies in different kinds of ecosystem because that will be dependent on what is type of nutrient, what is the species diversity, and what is the environmental conditions. For example, if you drop a leaf on three types of area, okay, for example, same type of leaf on desert, on glacier, in garden soil, the rate of decomposition of this leaf would be very high in garden soil compared to if you dropped it on snow or in glaciers or in desert. So that determines the type of energy flow that would be existing in a particular ecosystem. Say for example, energy flow in shallow waters and heavily grazed pastures will show large energy flow via the grazing food chain. That means grazing food chain will be dominating in shallow waters. Why? We know that penetration of light would be very deep because the water body is shallow. So that will be very productive ecosystem. And opposite is true in case of forest. Okay, that means saprophagic food chain will be dominating. So in forest, marshes and oceans. Now, when we have understood what is productivity, what is energy flow, what is different energy flow models, next thing is we always are interested to know what is the efficiency of a particular system. Now, if you want to know the efficiency of a system, you need to see various terminologies. As I told you, assimilation means incorporation of nutrients into the cell mass of plants or animals. That is assimilation. So plants, they fix energy. So we can calculate the assimilation efficiency by taking this plants divided by the amount of light absorbed into 100. So for autotrophs, assimilation efficiency, you can use this equation. For consumers, food assimilated divided by food ingested. So for example, even all the food that we are consuming, not all of would be converted to muscle or cell mass, isn't it? So consumers, food intake, food assimilated divided food intake into 100.
And I have been here 4 nights to start class.
Consumption efficiency is this one. Ingestion at trophic level N. This N could be for different trophic level. Okay, ingestion at trophic level N divided by net production at that trophic level into 100. So that is consumption efficiency. Production efficiency, it is at trophic level N divided by assimilation at trophic level N. And ecological growth efficiency is production at trophic level N divided by ingestion at trophic level N. Transfer efficiency is production at trophic level N divided by production at trophic level N minus 1. So if you are able to relate these concepts and whatever we have covered so far, you will be able to calculate these different ecological efficiencies. Next we have this various pyramids. So we have three different types of pyramids. There are more, but we are focusing on these three, which helps us to see energy flow pyramid, pyramid of number and pyramid of productivity. So this one is energy flow pyramid A. If you look at this, P stands for producers, C1 stands for primary consumer, C2 stands for secondary consumer, and C3 for tertiary consumers. And if you look at these numbers, which are the amount of productivity in a particular trophic level, that is energy per square meter per year. Energy we are reporting in terms of kilocalories. So energy flow diagram will look like this. Then we can also look at the pyramid of number. Actually, it is the different plants and animals and other organisms that are living in that ecosystem. So if you look at this P, that is number of organism per zero point 0.1 hectare, and we are taking grassland.
I'm sure that all of you are
Okay. So if you look at this forest, for example, just now we have seen that it will be opposite in grassland, and in forest it will be completely different. That's how we are able to get this inverted pyramid.
most for me, especially when we talk about
And then we have this pyramid of biomass, which is gram per square meter. Suppose I am taking the whole tree. Rather than I'm reporting that as one unit, I can record the weight of that tree or grass or okay or any species, and then I'm reporting that into the pyramid of biomass. So pyramid of biomass will be inverted for water body, and it will be upright for a tropical forest. So with these pyramids, basically what we are able to show, something that we understood here, energy flow, okay, in waters and in grazed pastures, how that would be, which type of food chain will be dominating. So in this case, grazing food chain will dominate, then the detritus food chain. So that is the importance of understanding these pyramids.
in the direction, in the speed.
So we'll move to biogeochemical cycles. Any questions that you have based on what we have covered so far?
So, what they do they play a role? So, other
Sir,
Yes,
One second.
voice is not clear.
Sir, could you please explain the ecological pyramids once again?
Okay, ecological pyramids, basically the concept is by looking at the diagram, we will be able to tell what sort of food chain is dominating, whether it is dominated by grazing food chain, saprophagic food chain, or detritus food chain. That is the objective of looking at ecological pyramids. So in that we have ecological pyramid for energy, we have ecological pyramid for biomass, and we have ecological pyramid for numbers. So basically with that we'll be able to explain what type of food chain is dominating, and when we are saying what type of food chain, basically you will be able to see which particular species is dominating. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so
Clear.
let us move to this another part of this module, biogeochemical cycle. As I told you, if you break down the term, you know, bio, that is related to life, geo, and chemical. So that means we are dealing with something that is either living or was living. Geo means, what does geo tells us? Related to soil, that means minerals. And chemical means any nutrient that we are interested, any element, nutrients element. So C, N, P, S, calcium, magnesium, etc. समझ गए? So we are basically understanding how these processes are contributing to cycling of matter, cycling of energy. So before we go, we have to understand this concept of major elements and trace elements. So major means which are required in high concentration, high quantities. Minor means something which we require at trace level. Organism, all the organisms I am referring to. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, these are major. Nickel, manganese, zinc, these are minor. So when we are talking about biogeochemical cycling, basically we are referring to 30 to 40 elements that are necessary for most forms of life. And among these, the most important ones are these: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. Do you have any idea how much of carbon would be present in any organism? What percentage? Can anyone be able to tell that?
It's 90%.
No, 90 is too much. Or any other option that you want to give?
20.
So 60% is
Yes,
H2O, so
60,
maybe
60,
35 to
60. No, it says
38%.
60, but no, you're not taking, you're taking entire body mass. I'm telling you of all the nutrients that is present in biomass, how much of that would be carbon? It is 60%. By weight, we are referring the whole body weight, water will be there. But of that 40, 60% will be carbon. Okay?
By mass.
क्लास में है बाद में आइएगा क्या है
By mass.
क्लास में है बाद में आइएगा yes what was that
What's the percentage of carbon by mass?
uh, they were quite low repeat
After the completion of the course,
I'm asking what is the percentage by mass
60
of carbon?
60% by mass of all the nutrients all the elements elemental composition suppose if you take no, no, suppose if you take a plant no, no, just listen to this suppose you take a plant okay you exclude the water content
how we know that
and then measure the nutrients which are nutrients or elements that are present of that nutrients or elemental composition 60% will be carbon dry mass okay don't bring in water here we're referring to the elemental composition of biomass.
So, but water also contains like elements. So basically, everything is elements. So why not?
But it will be carbon, it is the more. Achha, which one do we have more in our body mass? It is the carbohydrates, isn't it? So carbohydrates and carbon that constitutes the major portion of the biomass in all the all the living organisms. Okay. So carbon is the most required element for living organisms, whether it is plant or animal. Carbon followed by nitrogen followed by phosphorus. Okay, so that is the sequence. So among these, most important ones are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus. We know these. Now you should be able to recall the concept of food chain here. And we have said that so many grassland is required to support the trophic level, which should be above the grass land. Okay, that means a lot of carbon will be required to make one trophic level above the grassland, and so on. Okay. So let us look at this concept of ecosystem metabolism. We have understood about production. What is production? We have understood that. But it is not that straightforward to completely calculate the productivity of an ecosystem. So we have these concepts which we start with gross primary production. That means the total carbon that is fixed from the environment. So gross primary production is total photosynthetic fixation of carbon. Now, from that we can compute net primary production (NPP). So this is GPP, this is NPP. So what is GPP? Sorry, what is NPP? NPP is gross primary production minus RA. RA is autotrophic respiration. So that means net primary production is the photosynthesis carried out by algae or autotrophs minus respiration will give you net primary production. Now it is not complete. When we are interested to know what is the total productivity of an ecosystem, we do not have enough information as of now. So we go to this heterotrophic respiration. So what is heterotrophic respiration? We denote this by RH. That is the respiration that will be carried out by consumers. Plus decomposers also respire. Algae, bacteria, fungi, they also respire like algae. So there is respiration of autotrophs plus respiration of consumers and comes respiration by decomposers. So this R consumer and decomposer would give us RH. So ecosystem respiration is Ra plus RH. So this is the total production. Okay, this is this point gross primary production. This is the total respiration. So what is the net ecosystem productivity then? That is gross primary productivity minus the respiration that is occurring in the ecosystem. So this way we will be able to compute net ecosystem production. Before before we go to biogeochemical cycle, we have to understand that there are two types of cycle. One is known as perfect or gaseous cycles. The other one is known as imperfect or sedimentary cycles.
What type of
So what are they?
required? What is the type of basic
Cycles which have large gaseous components are put under this gaseous cycles, and imperfect are those where we have this earthbound elements and large portions of supply may become unavailable for long periods of time, thus disturbing cycle. So we have sedimentary cycle. Calcium, phosphorus, iron, these are examples of sedimentary cycles. You may be able to see these elements and understand why we are referring about them as imperfect cycle, because these do not have a major supply from gaseous component. In fact, phosphorus does not have a gaseous component at all.
you can talk about these all.
Similarly, calcium and iron.
These are the
So
sources.
sedimentary cycles we have. Basically, cycle means what? Exchange between atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. When we are following any particular element, say for example carbon, I'm tracking. I have radio labeled carbon molecule, and I'm tracking its movement in various compartments of the environment. And what are these compartments? Atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. So I will be able to track where this carbon that I have labeled is going. So that way I will be able to track the cycling of carbon. So this is an example that I'm giving you, but similarly we look for other elements which are getting cycled in atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere.
Instead of doing that,
So examples of sedimentary and gaseous cycle is already given to you. Ecosystem processes. Okay, this is basically we are revising before we are going to understand the biogeochemical cycles. So we have photosynthesis, herbivory you understand, carnivory you understand, decomposition. So this way we are able to track the flow of matter and energy, isn't it? So this is what is also helping us to understand biogeochemical cycle. What is a nutrient? I don't need to explain. You already know this, so we'll move forward to a nutrient cycle. So just follow this one diagram, and other diagrams will have similar explanation. So in this, yellow line is indicating solar energy, orange line for movement of heat, red arrow that is energy flow that is stored in biomass in the form of chemical bonds, and this blue color is for flow of nutrients. Because nutrients are materials, they cycle in the Earth's ecosystem. Is that understandable? What I just said. Nutrients are materials and they get cycled in ecosystem. For example, carbon from carbon dioxide may become carbon in a sugar made by plant. And then this carbon which is there in the carbon dioxide, now it is there in the plant. From this plant it can go to different trophic levels. And once all of this completes the life cycle, decomposer breakdown organic molecules and release inorganic nutrients to the ecosystem. And again there is the start of utilization of inorganic nutrients by algae, and then again we have organic molecules. So that's what we mean by the cycle. You can refer this diagram, which will help you to understand. So we all start with this point, you know? And then from here it goes to other places, you know, and so on, and then it goes to higher up the food trophic level. Then it is coming back. Once it is fed by detritus, again there is release of nutrients which is taken up by. So that means we have photosynthesis, and you have technical. We have photosynthesis, you understand? Then photosynthesis will drive herbivory, herbivory drives carnivory, and all these three are broken down by decomposers, which releases the nutrients back for start of photosynthesis. So that's what we mean by cycling. Is that clear? अभी तक क्लियर है जो बताया गया है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So with this schematic, we'll understand further cycle. So material cycling follows the law of conservation of matter. Okay, so an important point which you must remember. And that means elements used by living organisms are taken up. Taken up means assimilation and used by producers. And then it is passed down the food chain by consumers. And finally, it is released back to the environment by decomposers. So you see that this is the whole cycle that we are referring to. Just look at this carbon cycle. Carbon, as we all know, it is the backbone of all organic molecules because it is required in very high quantities. And we know that it is the photosynthesis which is allowing us to fix carbon. And breakdown of these organic molecules releases back CO2 to the atmosphere. Look at this diagram which will help you to understand carbon cycle. So here we have three type of boxes. The white color box shows a reservoir. Reservoir means we can consider something from where it is getting available. Processes means what is happening to the carbon which is
So what
coming
you said for reservoir?
from where it is coming.
Okay.
Storage point in simple terms. Trophic level means where the carbon which is coming from these different processes is moving across different trophic levels. Acha, what is the reservoir for CO2? Can you name some reservoirs for CO2? Or sources of CO2 rather. If you are getting confused with what reservoir, but
Respiration?
atmosphere.
Fires. Plant.
Atmosphere. Atmosphere is the major reservoir, and then we have the fire.
Burning.
It's a process. No. Fire is a process which is releasing the carbon which is present in the biomass back to the atmosphere. Burning of fossil fuel is process. Respiration by plants and animals is a process. The release of CO2 which is dissolved in ocean is a reservoir. Now CO2 is stored in ocean. Okay.
Sir, why is limestone written there?
CO2 is dissolved in ocean, isn't it? In the form of, for example, we have this carbonate and bicarbonate, and once there is addition of acid, carbonate and bicarbonate will be dissolved and they will be releasing back CO2 to the atmosphere. Yes, what was that? Okay, then we have this, yes.
Sir, why is there limestone in?
Why is there the limestone, sir?
What is limestone? What is limestone?
Limestone is just
Reservoir.
No, yeah, that is fine. It is a reservoir, but what is the formula of limestone?
Calcium carbonate.
क्या है इसमें?
CaCO3.
CO3 में क्या है?
Carbonator.
What will carbonate release when we add acid?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. समझ गए? That is a reservoir. So limestone is a reservoir.
where
And
will acid?
when we add acid, we'll come to that. है ना? Acid input अभी आया नहीं, आएगा धीरे धीरे आएगा. But now you have to understand this carbon cycle.
Naturally acid आता है, sir.
Yes, it can be. For example, what is the pH of natural rainwater?
Okay, वैसे.
5.6.
Why it is 5.6?
because SO2 and all the other gases,
SO2 नहीं, अभी SO2 में नहीं,
CO2.
yeah, carbonic acid.
carbonic.
CO.
Okay, carbonic acid is responsible for pH 6, 5.6. So that means pH of natural rain is acidic. When we are talking, अभी किसी ने बोला ना SO2, NO2, जब ये सब आ जाएंगे, then it will be below this. That means acid rainfall is whenever pH is less than 5.6. That's when we consider acid rain. So don't get confused now. Acid rain अभी मत लाओ. We'll go to that point. But for now, you understand the movement of carbon from where it is coming to the living system, and then where all it is going, and then how it is coming back. Say, for example, we have the CO2 fixation by plants, and then plants are helping these higher organisms to survive. And once both plants and animals they are gone, they are acted upon by the soil bacteria and detritus feeders, and these detritus feeders. So again, it is a reservoir. The dead bodies, waste that is excreted by animals, that is reservoir. Okay. Now it is releasing this carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. Okay. So decomposition of waste is a process, and that process is releasing the CO2 back to the atmosphere. Now again, the cycling will start. Is that clear? So here we also have a very important component which will cover, say for example, fossil fuels. And burning of fossil fuels, we all know what it is doing. So carbon is required for building organic compounds. So reservoirs, we have atmosphere, fossil fuel, organic material. For example, cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, that is what is present in plant matter. Assimilation, we have uptake by plants and incorporation of that CO2 into their cell mass, and then animal consume plants. That means these plants are able to fix CO2, and then this CO2 that is fixed by plants, now that is getting incorporated into the biomass of animals. So that is assimilation. So if you look at these three terms, reservoir, assimilation means process, and release means cycling of that nutrient or element back to the environment. The release mechanism for carbon is plants and animals release CO2, yes. They all do through respiration, and once they are dead, decomposition will also release CO2. CO2 is also released, as we know that, from wood and fossil fuel burning. So if you look at these three terms and then apply these three terminology for any nutrient or any element, that will help you to understand the cycling of that particular element. Reservoir, assimilation, release, or reservoir, processes, trophic level. Since we're talking about carbon, it is very impossible for us to go past without mentioning this word global warming. We'll come to this again in module 2, but for now, since we're talking about carbon cycle is very important in terms of not only understanding its carbon cycle, but also its very influential role in warming up of the whole planet. And we all have understood this greenhouse gas effect. We all know this, what it is. And that is related to burning of fossil fuels. So this is very elementary knowledge you already know, but the important point that I want to drive home here is that in less than 200 years, we have burned nearly half of the world's fossil fuels. So at this rate, soon we will be completely consuming all the fossil fuels that are existing in our planet. And I don't have to mention how the fossil fuels are formed in environment. You can go through, it's very basic knowledge. The important point is it takes long geological time scale. And geological means million years and more. So what we are referring about is something which is happening at a very slow pace, but the consumption is happening at a very rapid rate. So this greenhouse gas effect You may have heard about it. We'll come to it again in module 2. But since we are here, it is important for us to just refer this. So if you just follow this diagram, you will be able to understand that we have this greenhouse gas effect which is helping us to remain alive on this planet. Can anyone be able to tell what will be the temperature in the absence of this greenhouse gas effect in Earth? What will be the temperature?
Sir, it
Average.
like Arctic circle, like minus degrees something.
हाँ माइनस तो ठीक है माइनस कितना माइनस करेक्ट आंसर
Same on
Minus
that on moon.
This is the temperature, average temperature in the absence of greenhouse gas effect. But what we are, the average temperature across the globe is plus 20 degrees Celsius. That means there is a warming up of 38 degrees C. Actually, this is very good. Otherwise, we will not be able to survive.
You have to put a control device so that you
I didn't understand your last.
should
Yes.
these standards.
I didn't get completely what you said in the last.
Okay, the temperature in our planet is plus 20. Okay, and what we have is minus 18 theoretically. This is practically. समझ रहे हो? This 38 degrees Celsius increase is due to the greenhouse gas effect. That means we have solar radiation that comes, and some of that heat is trapped in the atmosphere, and then some of it is reflected back to the space. Now the amount of heat that is escaping into the space is stopped by these greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and they re-radiate it back to the earth, which allows us to see a warming. Now that is a natural process. See, someone is mic is unmuted, so mute. आप लोग अगर कुछ बोलना नहीं है म्यूट कर दो.
हम लोग को करने के बाद क्या क्या लगा देंगे हम लोग ज्यादा लगा देंगे वो हम लोग का काम है हम लोग को उसके बाद उनके लिए पता चाहिए ये ला दिए और चाहिए पता कल आ जाएगा कल आएगा
कुमार यश, your mic is unmuted. आप म्यूट कर सकते हैं. If you're not. Yes. So that is greenhouse gas effect. We'll come to it in next class because I have to go to this attendance. It will take some time. We'll continue further on this in next lecture.
Thank you, sir.
Just wait for attendance. First, I'm recalling IIT. Okay, please pay attention and be attentive. Yes, Jen? Yes, Jen? Aruba Tashvim? ईशान गुप्ता. अच्छा, जिनका अटेंडेंस हो गया वो लॉग आउट कर सकते हैं. ईशान गुप्ता. अनुराग गुप्ता.
Sir, 115 Aruba.
What? When I was calling you, you have to be attentive. I cannot waste time like this.
Yes, sir.
This time I'm giving you, if someone is not responding on time, I will not give attendance to that student, no matter what you say, whether it is a network issue or what, because it will just take up a lot of time. Anurag Gupta?
Yes, sir, I'm present.
Ayush Raj? Kumar Sanyam? Shiv Shankar? Mohammed Faisal. Mohammed Faisal.
Sir, sir,
What's your roll number?
10149, Shivankar.
What were you doing when I was calling your name?
Sir, muting and that time. I'll
Mohammed Faisal. Vishwak Sena Reddy. Rajkumar.
Present, sir.
Rajkumar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, present.
Rajkumar is present.
Yes, sir.
Abhay Kumar Sharma.
Present, sir. Abhay Kumar.
Oh, you are absent, Vishwak. When I called you, did not respond. Now you say me.
Mic was not on.
कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं. You can, if you are attentive, you will be able to answer on time. Let this be a lesson.
Sir, not mic really, sir.
No, don't waste my time. I don't have. If you argue, I will mark you absent for 5 more classes. If anyone argues and wastes time, if you are not attentive,
Sir, Abhay
that's
Kumar
my
Sharma,
problem.
present.
Parijit Milind.
Present, sir.
Rajkumar Ravi.
Present, sir.
Roshan Kumar.
Present, sir. Roshan Kumar Shukla.
Ronit Kumar. Piyush Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Piyush Kumar.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm hearing 2 years.
Rohit Kumar present.
मैंने जब नाम बोला था आप सो रहे थे क्या? आप आज एब्सेंट रहिए क्योंकि आप कहीं बाहर घूम रहे हैं, घूमते रहिए. सिद्धार्थ कुमार.
Present, sir.
प्रवीण कुमार.
Present.
और जिनका अटेंडेंस हो गया दे कैन लॉग आउट. काशिफ.
Praveen Kumar present.
प्रवीण कुमार प्रेजेंट. काशिफ. हर्ष नारायण.
Harsh Narayan present, sir.
यश पडियर.
Yes, sir.
प्रांशु शेखर.
Present, sir.
अंशुल. विकास ओराम.
Present, sir.
ज्ञान रंजन.
Present, sir.
कुमार हर्षवर्धन.
Yes, sir.
मानस मिश्रा.
Present, sir.
प्रिंस आर्यन. Prince Aryan.
Yes.
What's your roll number?
1020, sir.
Anubhav Thakur.
present, sir.
Himanshu Raj.
Present, sir.
Aditya Dev Pandey. Adarsh Ranjan.
Present, sir.
Tarun Agarwal. Madi Reddy Akhil. Siddharth Saraf.
Present, sir.
Harshit.
Sir.
Harshit.
Present, sir.
Amog.
Sir.
Amog Huddar.
Excuse me, sir.
Who is that?
सर मेरा माइक में जरा प्रॉब्लम आ रहा था. आदर्श रंजन. अटेंडेंस मार्क हो गया ना?
Yes, it is marked.
Sir, you called Amog.
Amog. Present है.
Present, sir.
गौरंग दीक्षित.
Present, sir.
प्रवीण दीक्षित.
Present, sir.
अच्छा जो लोग नहीं बोल रहे माइक म्यूट में रखें प्लीज.
Sir, every mark Gaurang Dixit present, sir.
Yes, you are present.
Sir, Praveen Dixit present. Present.
सुदर्शन भगत.
Present, sir.
हर्ष आजाद. आदित्य सिंह.
Present, sir.
समर्थ प्रताप सिंह.
Present, sir.
आकर्ष श्रेष्ठ.
Present, sir.
निखिल वर्मा.
Present, sir.
नवीन राज. नवीन राज एब्सेंट. प्रकाश माझी.
Yes, sir.
रेशमा कुमारी.
Present, sir.
सांडिल अग्रवाल.
Present, sir.
आदित्य दुबे.
Sir, present.
ओके. अभी जैन. गौरव आनंद.
Sir, Abhijan present.
ओके. गौरव आनंद. मुदित राय. आयुष्मान. Sayam Jain.
Present, sir.
Who's that?
Present.
Sir, Ayushman present.